What's up, fellow music nerds? Matrix here, and you are locked into the Matrix Music Review Podcast, the only place to get your fix for country and alternative music. And we are back with an alternative episode this week. It's definitely been a minute since I've talked about alternative music, but happy to get back into it. We got a bunch of albums, singles, EPs to talk about, and as always, we'll finish up with some tour announcements at the end. If you're not already, make sure you are following the podcast on any platform where you hear our pod so that you can stay up to date on all the new releases. Head on over to Spotify and follow our playlist so that you can stay up to date on all the new music that I'm listening to. And head on over to the social medias, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Matrix Music Review to stay up to date on the day-to-day news that comes out in both country and alternative, whether that be tour announcements, singles announcements, or in the case of this week, bands breaking up, which I'll touch on a little bit later. And as I always do, make sure that you are sharing our channel with your family, friends, anybody that you like, so that we can continue to build this community of music nerds for people that love music just as much as I do. So with that, we're going to jump right into our album reviews, and the first one we're going to talk about is Why Would I Watch by Hot Mulligan. So Hot Mulligan returns with their first album since 2020, and this is an album where the vocal angst is immediate right away. And it's an angst that you can't not love. You know, the yelping is the way I'm going to refer to it. I don't know how else to refer to it other than yelping. Is something that is just so unique and so different that we don't hear very often, that really sets Hot Mulligan apart from all of the other bands in the scene right now. And their creativity is something else that really stood out throughout this entire album. You know, obviously we have an album title like Why Would I Watch? And then we get the creative song titles. You know, it almost kind of reminded me of OG Fall Out Boy, where, you know, we would get these random titles that we would try to like dig into and see exactly what it was that they were trying to talk about. But with Hot Mulligan, I think it's interesting because these song titles really tell a story, and it was evident right away. I mean, you get a song like It's a Family Movie, She Hates Her Dad, and when you start listening to that song and diving a little bit deeper into the lyrics, you get pieces like The Family's Off Their Face at Graduation, and I know that this is how it's passed down through the generations and things like that. And you can just kind of hear where maybe he's telling this story from the girl's point of view, and she hates her dad because he got everybody hooked on those drugs, or he got everybody off their face before her graduation. You know, it's kind of you can put yourself in those shoes, whether you've been through that situation or not, but you can also feel like you're in that situation at the same time, you know, and that's what I love about a band like Hot Mulligan, is that they can make you feel like you've been in this situation, or you can even visualize it thanks to the lyrics and even the titles of the songs. And lyrics were something that was so present throughout this entire album that, you know, I wrote one down, and I remember it was from a song towards the end of the album. I don't remember exactly which one, but it says, "And I suck the blood out of a canker sore." And if you know what that is, obviously it's very gross to think about something like that, but it's just so different and so unique. And that's why I loved this album, was that, you know, we got all of the angst and we got all of the instrumentation and the sounds that we love in the punk, pop punk, hard rock, whatever kind of genre you want to call it. But we also got the uniqueness that I feel like has been missing from some of the bands that are out right now. So I love that Hot Mulligan was able to bring their own unique twist to everything. And yes, we had our standard songs that talk about a lot of the general topics that we hear about today. You know, you get a song like And I Smoke, and it really just touches on anxiety, depression, loneliness, all of those different things. And one of the songs that I wanted to just touch on, because it's just so gorgeously devastating, and that is Betty. And Betty is this stripped back, crushing song about the ups and downs and the ultimate death of a pet. And I thought that was really interesting because I've been listening to music for a long time, and you guys know, obviously, I do country music, and we got plenty of songs in country music about my dog dying or man's best friend dying or, whatever it may be. But I can't say that I've really ever heard any songs in the alternative genre that really touch on this subject. And I just thought it was an interesting addition to an album that has a lot of up-tempo, hard-hitting songs with these unique lyrics to strip it back and give us a song like Betty, where you can see the pain that somebody goes through with losing a pet. So I really enjoyed Betty, even though it was a crushing song to hear. But my favorite on the album probably is Christ Alive, My Toe, Damn It Hurts. And I don't really have a good reason why that's my favorite. It's just one that I continue to come back to and continue to play. I think sonically it just resonates with me for some reason. It's definitely one that I have not been able to stop playing since the album came out last week. But overall, this album was super, super strong. I was kind of blown away by how much I enjoyed this Hot Mulligan record. I think they're a band that I knew about. They're a band that I had listened to before, but they were kind of just on the edge of my listening taste for some reason, and now they're firmly entrenched in it. This is an album that I'm going to revisit several times this year, more than likely, and I can't wait to keep listening to it. I mean, that's really the only way I can talk about it. So if you haven't heard it yet, Why Would I Watch by Hot Mulligan? Go give it a listen. Next album up is the new EP Over My Dead Body from Girlfriends. Now, Girlfriends, this EP really is something that I would describe as a good mix between classic pop punk and Renaissance pop punk. And I think that's a term that I'm going to start using more, Renaissance pop punk, because I think it's a really good way to describe some of the sounds that we're hearing right now. The Jadens, the MGKs of the world that are kind of leading the charge of this pop punk renaissance that we're having, but some of the elder bands are still showing us exactly what we want. And I think that's a good way to describe this Girlfriends EP, is that it's a good mix of old and new, because we have a song like Talk, which really has a lot of radio appeal, but it really hits more on the newer side of pop punk. And then we have a song like Plastic, which is my clear favorite off of this EP. And it's one that I actually used when I posted on TikTok yesterday about the playlist. And it's just one that you can really feel the early to mid 2000s pop punk scene. You can hear yourself singing out to this. You can see other people going nuts to this at a Warped Tour or something like that. And that's what I really enjoy about bands like Girlfriends, is that, you get this mix of old and new where you can see how much appreciation that they have for the bands that came before them, but they also want to be unique and be themselves. And I love that artists are doing that more. And the title track's one that I just wanted to mention because I love the little tagline in it that one day we could reunite, maybe somewhere over my dead body, maybe. And that is such a interesting twist on maybe trying to get back together with someone after it's been a while. And yeah, maybe we could reunite over my dead body, baby. And that's just such a cool little tagline to see in an EP like this. And, I talked about the classic feel on a song like Plastic, which is basically all about a relationship feeling fake or feeling plastic. And, it just kind of and it's the last song on the EP, and it just kind of caps off this enjoyable EP from Girlfriends. I don't know. Like I said, I think Talk has radio appeal. I'll be interested to see if maybe they push it to radio. But overall, it's a fine EP. I think it's one that will get some love, maybe not a lot, just because, like I said, some people are really not feeling that new pop punk that people are doing. But I enjoyed it, and I hope everybody else does. So Over My Dead Body, the new EP from Girlfriends, go check it out. Next up, we got Full Free Radical, the new EP from Happy Daze. Now, Happy Daze is a band that I've talked about on the podcast a few times before, and this is an interesting collection of songs. That's the way I can describe this. You know, everybody knows that I love Faded. It's one of my favorite tracks this year so far. It's so great sonically, and that's what really drew me into this band. Day In and Out is basically a song about barely getting by and wanting to give up. And I think that's a common theme throughout, this whole EP. But this EP is one that does kind of feel like it runs together a little bit, just for me. And it's enjoyable. I liked it, but I didn't like some of these other songs as much as I liked Faded. And I'm wondering if things ran together for me because we start with such high tempo and then it just kind of bleeds into a lot of mid-tempo songs. I would like to have seen another high tempo Faded type track, maybe around like 4 or 5, or even a stripped back track around there, just to kind of throw you off a little bit or just give you a little bit of a different feel to it. But overall, like I said, this is a strong EP. I'm excited to see more from Happy Daze. I think this is a band that has a lot of potential. They've showed it on Faded, they've showed it on Cool Blue, they've showed it on Full Free Radical, and this is a good first step for them. I'm really excited to see more from them. So, Full Free Radical from Happy Daze, go check it out. Next up, we have the Echoes EP from Born for Greatness. Now, this is just going to be a very brief mention. I know you guys heard me talk about Born for Greatness and their song Echoes back a couple pods ago in Alternative, but I want to briefly mention this because this is a band that I can see great things on the horizon. Born for Greatness has such a good sound. And what I mean by that is they're a heavier sounding band in terms of their instrumentation. And they have great vocals behind it. They have great sound. And it's just one of those bands that for me, they have the it factor. I can already tell that they have this it factor that is going to push them into kind of the next level of popularity. I think they're going to be in the next level of stardom. And it's interesting because obviously I only found out about them through Echoes, and it was just scrolling playlists one day that I found that song. But this is a band that gives me Archetypes Collide vibes. They give me You, Me at 6 vibes. Two bands that I've talked about this year that have been super, super strong influences in the scene. I think Born for Greatness is up next. I think this is a great step for them with this EP. I'm going to link a couple of the songs on the playlist. If you haven't listened to them yet, go check them out. If you've liked any of Archetypes Collide new stuff or any of You, Me at 6 new stuff, head on over to whatever platform you stream your music and check out Echoes because this is a really strong EP. Born for Greatness, new EP, Echoes, go check it out. That wraps it up for our albums this week, but we're going to slide right into our singles, and the first one I want to talk about is Second Chance by Nick Karcher and Joey Fleming. First chance to talk about Nick on the podcast, which I'm super excited about because his song Mr. Obsessive has been on repeat all year long and is looking like a pretty safe lock for her top 10 at the end of the year. But this song Second Chance is a great follow-up to a song like Mr. Obsessive. It's a slower song where you get these really strong hooks about don't give that second chance to that person. And, I really I can't say enough good things right now about Nick because I've only heard 2 songs. But honestly, it's like I just said with Born for Greatness. When artists or bands have that it factor, it's very evident right away. And to me, Nick's got it. He has all of the appeal that people are going to love. He's got the relatable lyrics. He's got the good sound. He's got the great visuals. And that's something that I wasn't planning on touching on, but I love the album artwork that he's put out on these 2 tracks, Mr. Obsessive and Second Chance. It's strong, it's powerful, and it just kind of grabs your attention. And that was the first thing that I noticed about the Mr. Obsessive album cover was that it caught my attention, it brought me in, and then when I heard the track, as soon as I heard the lead in, I knew that it was going to be something that I loved. Same thing with Second Chance. When he started promoting it on his social medias, you can hear it right away. And that's something that you don't hear very often. That's not something that I say very often about artists or about bands, is that, 2, 3, 4 songs in, I know that they have the it factor. But we got 2 great examples of that this week with Born for Greatness and Nick Karcher. So if you haven't heard it yet, Second Chance by Nick Karcher featuring Joey Fleming, go check it out. Next track is Clinically Insane by Friend Circle. Just another banger of a track from these guys. I cannot get enough of this band. I love their sound. I love what they're doing. I'm excited to continue to hear more, and might even get a chance to go check them out on a show later this year. But in the meantime, Clinically Insane by Friend Circle, go check it out. Next up, we got Drink Bleach by Crooked Teeth. Love, love, love this track from Crooked Teeth. This is all about not being someone's friend, not being this puppet that's going to be played. And I love that. I love that you get this angst and this just push that this person is really feeling these lyrics. And I saw a post from them about kind of what the song was about, and it's so awesome. Head on over to their Instagram and check out that post, and you can get a little bit more of the story behind the song. But really strong work from Crooked Teeth on this one. Drink Bleach. If you haven't heard it yet, go check it out. Next track is Homicide by Magnolia Park. Guys, look, I don't even know how to continue to keep up with Magnolia Park and their output at this point. This is a band that I feel like I've talked about on every single podcast, because every time I feel like they're kind of slowing down and taking a break, out pops a new song. And here I am recording a podcast and talking about Homicide, and they're already talking about who's ready for new music on their socials. So this is a band that, if any of my country fans listen to this, I want you to consider somebody like Charlie Crockett or Zach Bryan that just consistently throw out songs, albums, and the output is just unreal. This is exactly what you get from a band like Magnolia Park. And I think this is why they're so popular in the scene right now, is that there's always something new from them. There's always something to listen to. And Homicide is a fantastic track. I love it. It's probably, out of the past couple of singles that they've released, it's been my favorite so far. But Homicide by Magnolia Park, go check it out. Next up, I'm going to talk about 2 singles here at the same time. I have Dark Void from Asking Alexandria and More Like a Crash from Mayday Parade. Just wanted to make a brief mention of these. It's 2 stalwarts in the genre making a comeback with a new track. Love both of them. It's classic sounding from both of them. Really enjoy them. Go check out the new tracks from Asking Alexandria and Mayday Parade. Speaking of stalwarts in the scene, we're going to talk about Lost from Bring Me the Horizon. Nothing to criticize here, nothing to talk about here with Bring Me the Horizon. It's always good to hear new music from them. One of my favorites this week. Excited to hear what else they got up their sleeve. So Lost from Bring Me the Horizon. Go check it out. Next up, we got Love Letter from Knox. Look, this is another one that if you're a lyric nut like me, you're going to love. The wordplay in this is phenomenal. You get something about burning love letters, and then you go straight into love let her lose trust, love let her trust, love let her down. And it's just such a cool little twist on a song called Love Letter. And I love that we're hearing this from younger artists. I love that we're seeing some creativity from younger artists. And I can't wait to hear more from Knox. This was one of my first experiences with him. I've seen him all over social media, so I was excited to actually hear a new track right away. But go check out Love Letter from Knox. Next track is Temporary from Marlhy. My first exposure with her, and it's such a dark song just about sadness, but realizing that sadness is temporary, or it should be temporary. And this being my first exposure, you guys know what I'm going to say. I'm excited to hear more. I'm excited to go back and check out some of the things that I've missed in the past. But in the meantime, I want y'all to go check out Temporary from Marlhy. Next track is What Am I Missing from the band CAMINO. Not a band that I thought I would be talking about on this podcast. Not usually a big fan of the band CAMINO, but I needed to mention this song because sonically it is a standout. I mean, it's got driving guitars, it's got hard rockin' vibes to it, and I don't know how else to classify it. I hope you guys go check it out on the playlist. It was such a surprise for me, and I love this sound from them. I hope that this is the way that they're leaning, because I love how the vocals sounded behind it as well. So What Am I Missing by the band CAMINO. Go check it out. And our last track this week is So Sentimental from Walwin. This is another one of my artists that has just burst onto the scene for me. This is a classic pop punk sound, a classic pop punk love song, and much like Friend Circle, Nick Karcher, Born for Greatness, this is an artist that I just kind of found out about this year, but has burst into one of my favorites. I love the sound, and I love the twist that we get with him being British. I think that adds such a cool and unique touch that we don't really hear all that often. So Sentimental from Walwin. Go check it out. That wraps it up for singles this week, but we're going to talk about a few things at the end, a news segment, if you will. First one we're going to talk about is tours. I just posted today on Instagram that Dance Gavin Dance has just released some more tour dates. And also, we had a new tour announcement from Ice Nine Kills. They got support from Set It Off, The Plot and You, and a bunch of other bands. That's also over on Instagram if you want to go check it out. And obviously, I have to mention the big festival that was announced, Blue Ridge Rock Fest. Guys, if you want to see all of your favorite bands in one place at one time over a 4-day weekend, I gotta believe that this is the only chance that you're going to get to see a lineup this stacked. I can't even do it justice by trying to mention all of the names. Slipknot's headlining. I've seen Thousand Below on there. I saw Stained on there. I can't even remember. I think Motionless in White's on there. I can't remember. There are so many names on that roster in that lineup. So head on over to Blue Ridge Rock Fest. Check out the lineup for yourself. Even if you can't go for all 4 days, try and go for at least one day, because it looks like the lineup is just super stacked. And the last thing I want to touch on is we did get some sadder news in our scene this week with the news of Sum 41 disbanding. Now, older pop punk bands disbanding is not anything new to us. Sum 41 is doing it in a rather different way than I would have imagined. They're going to release a new album. They're going to go on one more world tour. And then it sounds like they're hanging it up for good. And it almost sounds like they're not breaking up, more just they're done with the band. I don't really know what to make of it. I haven't heard anything bad about anybody in the band, or that that's the reason that they're breaking up. So we'll wait and see what kind of a tour announcement we get from Sum 41. Obviously, you guys know I'll post about it and talk about it on the podcast when we get one, but in the meantime, go over to Spotify, Apple Music, and just vibe out to some old Sum 41, because they were one of the stalwarts, they were one of the legends in the scene, and they will always be a giant to me. They will always be one of the bands that got me into the genre. And yeah, that's really all I can say about it at this point. I'll keep everybody updated as I get to know more. That wraps it up for us this week here on the Matrix Music Review Podcast. I hope everybody enjoyed. As always, make sure that you are sharing with your friends and family so that we can continue to build our little community of music nerds here. I am so enjoying all of the people that are reaching out and enjoying the podcast, enjoying the playlists. And, that's why I do it. I'm just here to hopefully introduce everybody to some new music and talk about some of the great music that's out there, because we have a bunch nowadays. Head on over to Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter and follow us at Matrix Music Review. And if I'm missing any songs, albums, artists that you guys want me to talk about, send me a message. Let me know. I'll be more than happy to check it out and include it in a future podcast. And as always, what we're going to do is we let on our Spotify platform, we let an artist play us out. And this week, I got to give it to Nick Karcher featuring Joey Fleming, Second Chance.